Good morning, everybody. It's like 7:30 in the morning, and I'm not near my home. I just went one metro stop away. It is the, what, 3rd? 3rd of May? 4th of May. 4th of May. And yeah, it's kind of warm, but it was a rainy day, kind of cloudy. So anyway, I thought it very nice to go to a forest since it's now green in the underbrush as well here. Love forests. So anyway, I should get right into the news because I have quite a bit of it. And I thought, in light of what is going on over here, we're approaching the May 9th parade, which is a big major event for a few of the countries over here, the Soviet Union countries, Belarus and Russia, of course. And it's kind of, in a way, despised by, it's sort of, I don't know, what do you say, controversial in some countries. Maybe like in Poland, I would imagine, or, maybe to a certain extent in the Baltic states. But a lot of the governments, they despise the May 9th. It is because they look at it as they lost. They lost to Russia, the Soviet Union, and of course they were backing the Nazis. You look at the Baltic states and Finland, of course, like that. And now even a lot of these countries in Europe, it really angers them. They really, really hate May 9th, and because they were defeated by Russia. And it's very strange when you look at things back in history. Sometimes, you get these nations, they want revenge against another country for something that happened like 200 years before that. It's incredible. And it's just like you see some of these countries, they want to, like even Ukraine, as you see, these, it's just a different mentality. The Russians, of course, they look at people as, basing their geopolitical decisions on the needs or wants, desires of people. And of course, a lot of governments, they look at, as is well known, and you see that it's just a slap in the face obvious. They look at resources and how they can profit and gain things. But then of course there's also an element of like revenge. If some country had defeated them at some point in the past, they want to get back at them, and maybe they hold this grudge maybe for 50 years. And it's sort of like Finland in a way. It's like, well, what did Russia do that's bad to Finland? Of course, Finland, they were backing the Nazis. They backed Adolf Hitler. But and Finland, for a lot of the history, they belonged to Russia. That was property of Russia for the most part. And Russia gave them their independence, and they said, just stay neutral, and then you can do whatever you want to do. Just don't attack us and stay neutral. And of course, that wasn't good enough for the government of Finland recently, so they joined NATO. And they have a large army, and they want war against Russia. They've done it, I guess, a few times, and they've lost. I think they've lost every time. And they want to do it again. It's just very much like Germany. You have Merz. It looks like he's got this maybe revenge attitude, and of course some Germans do. So they want to attack Russia again, and maybe learn a third time. And it's a very strange thing because Russia is far more powerful now than they ever have been in the past, and it's like insanity. And a lot of people. Trump was even saying that at the very beginning, and Trump. Well, anyway, let me first get into the history of some World War II thing, a little history lesson for Donald Trump, as he came out and he said, like he said, I got ISIS, when of course it was the Soviet Union, Russia, that and the Syrian army that defeated ISIS not too long ago during Trump's first term. And if you talk to people in the know, they will come right out and tell you that ISIS was a proxy army of Israel and the United States. So they were trying to overthrow Assad, and heavily funded by the United States. Hillary Clinton, at least she had the decency to admit that, and she admitted on camera that Al-Qaeda was a proxy army of the United States. Gosh, I'm seeing like toilet paper in places. I don't even want to show you guys this on camera. You got to be careful walking around here. Might look like something like it's a pine cone, but it's not a pine cone. But anyway, Donald Trump, I don't know if he knows, but Donald Trump has this penchant for bragging. He loves to brag. Look at these hands. Look at these hands. I mean, anything, everything. It's, if you're a religious, I don't really like, cursing. I always think there's a better way to curse, but I mean, it sounds more graphic and more true when I say there's an expression, plug your ears if you don't want to hear it. Some people say, oh, his shit doesn't stink. So Donald Trump believes his shit doesn't stink and that everything that he touches turns to gold. Donald Trump is a very successful person. He's done a lot of great things. He's been, lots of acts of charity for people in need, very, very good things. But, he's got negative points as well. And I guess it's, what do they have, this theory of yin and yang, with before good can exist, you have to have equal forces of evil. And so maybe if that's true, then I guess we have to accept the negative parts of Donald Trump. But anyway, the people over here are very, very insulted about what Donald Trump said. He was saying that the Americans are the ones that beat the Nazis, and of course we're told that when we grow up anyway. It's a lot of countries. They like to make everybody think that they're, to make their own citizens think that we are so fantastically great, that everything that's ever happened in the world that is great is because of us. And Donald Trump, of course, maybe is trying to do that as well. Obviously, Ukraine really goes overboard. Everything that has ever happened that is great in the history of the world is Ukrainian. I said that yesterday. I thought, no, maybe I didn't. That's the video that was taking too long to upload, so I stopped uploading it and just got rid of it. No big deal anyway. It was a long video. But let's get going here about the history of World War II. I have a little bit written on the other cards too, but I just wrote this stuff on paper because it's quite a bit here, and I should probably read it verbatim. There was originally a truce at the beginning of the conflict before Adolf Hitler attacked the Soviet Union. But anyway, there was a kind of a truce between Adolf Hitler and Stalin. Stalin liked Adolf Hitler, for the large part because, they were both socialists. And a lot of people say, no, he was a fascist. Hitler was a fascist. He wasn't a socialist. But anyway, most fascists have always been socialists. So, everybody thinks that, oh, that's far right. A fascist is far right. Socialists are far left. But I don't know. I'll tell you what, that's why I don't like this designation of being left and right. And, like they say, the AfD of Germany, which is big in the news lately, they say they're far right. But now they instead of saying far right, they came up with this new, and they call them extremists now. And, saying like Nazis and stuff. But the AfD, they're much farther away from being Nazis than, for example, the CDU. The CDU wants to back the Nazis. So the party where the new chancellor is going to be taking over, he's much closer to being a Nazi than anybody in the AfD is. The AfD doesn't like this mass immigration and stuff, but they're anti-war. They they're very much, they're pro-German. And if you look at there's a lot of, there's nothing bad with that. Like I said, there's a Vladimir Putin just the other day, he told the difference between what a patriot is, the difference between a patriot and a nationalist. And nationalists always have this penchant to hate other countries or other nationalities or something like that. The AfD has never said they hated any other country or any nationality, really. They just don't want this unrestricted immigration. And of course you have Merz and Annalena Baerbock, and let's just say now the party position of the Green Party is to hate Russia. So I guess you can say that these other people are nationalists, they're fascists or whatever. These Kaja Kallas and Ursula von der Leyen, these people, they survive with because their theory of hate. Hate is a very big portion of their platform, their party platform. So anyway, and remember, the United States at one time, they said that they gave Adolf Hitler Man of the Year award, the Time Magazine Man of the Year award. And of course, a lot of the Polish government, they loved Adolf Hitler at the very beginning. And the Bush family, they were very much in bed with Adolf Hitler. and things. Adolf Hitler, I guess, owned large portions of land in the state of Colorado, and so they didn't see him so bad at the very beginning. And I think even the British, a lot of British liked him, and anyhow, but slowly Adolf Hitler turned out to be a trickster. It's sort of like, like Trump saying he's neutral, and now all of a sudden he's firmly on the side of Zelensky. Zelensky admitted that. He said that he's finally turned Donald Trump in his favor. That's why he said he really is swarming all over this meeting he had in the Vatican, of all places, in a religious place. Donald Trump has now turned and apparently has great support now also for the Nazis. So looks like this might be a dry place, because I don't want my papers to be, it's already getting soft from the raindrops. So I should hurry up then, shouldn't I? Okay, so Hitler launched the attack on June 21st, 1941 at 4 o'clock in the morning against the Soviet Union, and that was launched by General Guderian, who was the creator of the Blitzkrieg. He's a great general in truth, of the German military. Germany, von Manstein and things. They had a lot of great generals. And of course, he was. If you compare, for example, any general like even Patton or any general from the United States or from Great Britain or anything, some of these German generals, even the Soviet generals, they're in a completely higher class than the American generals and things. Like American, whenever they win any battles and things, it's normally based on sheer force. Even Patton was a good general. I have to admit that, but he had tremendous forces, and anyway, I could get to the quotes. I don't want to do it right now, but it's like Roosevelt. I'll just kind of briefly say it, and I'll put the quote out a little bit later. But Roosevelt and Churchill, Churchill, the same guy that Donald Trump really loves. Churchill admitted on many occasions that it was the Soviets that conquered the Nazis, and so did Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But anyway, they're trying to change history. Trump is part of that as well. He wants to make everybody think that it was America, just like we defeated ISIS when, ISIS was growing in leaps and bounds, getting bigger and bigger and bigger until the Russia came into the war. But as the United States was fighting ISIS was growing, and obviously it's because that it's a proxy military in the United States, under the cover of using the press to make everybody think that they were battling ISIS. They were there to bomb the Syrian military. They were bombing and they were helping ISIS. So was Israel, always through the entire war. I was actually going to say, I said this in other videos, the original definition of ISIS, ISIS, it's not anything to do with the Islamic State, and I don't think that those people even know. Do you think the Arabic, why would they use the English language to define their organization, which they didn't, of course. And it's probably like a big joke if you actually probably know a lot of Israelis or something like that, higher up in the government. The definition of ISIS, ISIS, is Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. They even have an emblem. They had that for a long time. And you see, Israel does a lot of this stuff. If you've ever seen some of these clips, when they manipulate the president of the United States, so they did it in, I think it was Elmert or whoever, he was the leader of Israel at that time. He manipulated George Bush, and then they have these little dinners or, these little talks, and he's getting up there, and then they're laughing at how they manipulate the United States to do whatever they want. And of course, Bibi Netanyahu has Donald Trump wrapped around his little finger, and of course it looks like maybe Zelensky is starting to work on that too. And anyway, it's apparently Donald Trump. I don't quite know yet. The jury's still out because this whole thing isn't over, but it makes you really wonder if Donald Trump is turning out to be very easy to manipulate. He's firmly and deep in bed and curled up and cuddling with Israel under the sheets, as we all see. It's like the only thing he hasn't done is bombed Iran yet. And looks like Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying that the United States is is getting ready for that. And some of this stuff about Hegseth, apparently, following maybe Donald Trump's desire, one reason why they moved him from his position to make him the ambassador to the United Nations is because he was making plans with Netanyahu to bomb Iran for the United States. And I guess maybe Donald Trump didn't like it, at least not yet. So anyway, that was one reason why they moved him. And a lot of, I don't know, they're trying to say, oh, he didn't get fired, it's not a demotion, they moved him or whatever. I don't know. Take your own guess at that. So let's keep going on the war. It's you guys are distracting me. But anyway, the war was launched through the Brest area, and Brest is in a sort of a unique position there. It's the very lower corner of Belarus, and other wars have been launched there, and that's one reason why they had a big fortress there. And there's the Bug River. The Bug, I guess it winds around. It even goes down into southern Ukraine, and it's a significant small river in history. And of course, there are ancient Slavic peoples, and also right there at the same place. And there's a protective, building built around it. It's an excavation point there, and it's possible that it's 4,000 years before Christ, where some ancient Slavic peoples, a settlement there. All that's left there is these wood things there, but it's left right where it is at, and it lets you know that there were people living there at the time of the Egyptians. So maybe, I don't know, is the Sumerians 4,000 years BC? Was that the Sumerians? I'm trying to wonder, when is the Epic of Gilgamesh? At the times, very ancient times anyway, ancient people. So let's keep going. But I'm not sure, did Napoleon come through there as well when he got his ass kicked in Belarus as well? And I think, the Germans got their ass handed to them also eventually, and partly in Belarus as well, after they slaughtered, I don't know, I even have the numbers here, so let me keep going. After Germany, they moved over Belarus very quickly. It's open plains and sparsely populated, not a very warlike people, the Belarusians anyway. So they moved very quickly over that, and of course, the control of that area was given to the Ukrainians, the Banderites, and they were, for some odd reason, that ideology, maybe starting with the Bandera, is really big into cruel massacres, and like laughing and when they're smashing heads of babies and things like that. Some really, really vicious and cruel people, and makes you really wonder. Talk about satanic. It's in a way how they kill people. It's even worse than the Israelis, and the Israelis are, the military is a lot of really brutal killers, satanic killers and things like that going on. War is a terrible thing anyway. But I don't know. Let me keep going. I always have some more comments to say, but I gotta try to hold them to myself. Over 3 million Belarusians were killed by the Nazis in World War II. And like I mentioned, there are villages, they would go and they'd massacre the entire village, hundreds and hundreds of people. And favorite thing that they like to do, they did it in Poland, they did it in Belarus even. And I think that they actually killed about 3 million Polish people as well. And some people have these numbers, and of course they're completely and totally and utterly fictitious numbers. It's really exaggerated in Poland. Some are saying 3 million Jews in Poland, and if you start going with these fake numbers all the time, you would come up with like 15 million Jews that the Nazis killed, and it's very difficult to kill 15 million when they estimate that, I think it was either from Moscow or was it the Ural Mountains all the way to the tip of Portugal, the entirety of all of Europe. There was only 4.7 million Jews that they estimate. But yet the Nazis were able to kill maybe 15 million of the 4 million. So terrible. But it's also a fact that it's downplayed how many Belarusians they actually killed. And now, of course, it's kind of being released. and it's also now starting to be looked at as a real genocide of the genocide of Belarusian peoples. Because the Belarusian peoples, hey, this area that I'm at right now, this is the Partizansky area, and partisan warfare is famous in Belarus. So they would take to woods just like these, and they would hide in the woods, and they would make raids on Nazi caravans and things. It's very, very, very famous. And of course, it really pissed off the Germans. So they took it out on the people, and they go into villages and massacre everybody in the villages, because of their anger of losing, like, maybe some weapons or food, the food lines or whatever, the logistics. They would really upset the logistics, the partisans, and, sometimes even able to kill the German soldiers and the Ukrainian soldiers and things like that. So it was a real bloody time. Okay, over 3 million Belarusians, and they say that the amount is like about 33% of the population of Belarus was wiped out, and it was a very smaller, much smaller. Poland had a bigger population, so, and even Russia, so they didn't lose anywhere near 30% of their people, even though altogether, I guess it was like up to 27 million Soviet people were killed in World War II. And that's, of course, one reason why they have this May 9th thing, because huge massacres. They paid a big price, and like I said, it's been acknowledged that by Churchill and by Roosevelt that the bulk of the fighting was done. They say, the Soviets and the Russians, they are the ones that actually defeated the Nazis. And of course, it's a big insult that Trump comes out and says that it was the United States that did it. Really insulting to the people over here, because this is the biggest day. I mean, not this day today, but the May 9th is the biggest day. And it's not like a celebration, it's like a Memorial Day. It is a celebration, but of course a lot of people died, so it's sort of a day of remembrance for these people over here because of all of the massacres. But when they actually, with a lot of their blood, they defeated the Nazis that were out to Lebensraum. And some of the people, it's lost on them today about this new movement, including the former allies of the Nazis, the Baltic states and Ukraine. It's a big revision of Nazism. It's coming out again, and you don't even have to call it Nazism, but it has all the same principles, trying to massacre Russian peoples and things like that. So, but anyway, gosh, do keep going. So, I talked about the disinformation. A lot of reading. West Ukraine. Okay, how many? The Nazis, they fielded 148 divisions against the Russians. 148 divisions. And what is it, 15,000 soldiers in a division? And on the entire western side, to include France and Italy and all of those countries, the entire area, the Germans only had 23 divisions. So, like Churchill said, the bulk of all of the German forces, 85% of the Nazis and their allies, the Lithuanians and the Latvians, all of them, the largest bulk were fighting against the Russians. And like I said, I want to get to that quote, and Churchill at least had a depth of gratitude for the Russians, liquidating so many of the Nazis and destroying so much of their equipment. And of course, the United States actually helped financially. I don't know how many millions they put in for the Lend-Lease, but for every dollar they gave to the Soviet Union, they gave more than $3 to Great Britain, and Great Britain didn't do hardly anything when it came to the war. So it's bang for a buck. The United States got far more from the Russians than they did from the Brits. And I think they gave even more money. Well, I think the largest amount went to the British, and then they gave a lot. The smallest amount went to Russia, by the way, and the biggest amounts went to these Western countries that did very little to defeat the Nazis. So, like I said, 15% of Germany's forces were over there, and 85% were aimed against Russia and Belarus. And that's why there's so many losses here. Okay. So 7 million. Germany lost just under 7 million soldiers against Russia. 6,923,700. Ukraine, that was with the Nazis, they lost 2.5 million soldiers. But Ukraine lost 6 million civilians. And like I said, Ukraine was kind of split. The eastern side was actually backing the Soviet Union, and the eastern side was backing the Nazis. And of course, probably that's those 6 million civilians, which is actually more than what Belarus lost, but of course a lesser percentage of the population. But of course, they were probably killed by the Western Ukrainians, killing the Eastern Ukrainians, you know? And okay, the USA only lost 250,000. So Donald Trump coming out and bragging is actually a even much larger insult. And the United States, when they entered the war, 19 years later, but I think I wrote that down too, so let's get into this stuff here. The USA lost only 250,000 totally in the war in Europe. Mathematically, that means that for every American that was soldier that they lost, the Soviets lost 108. So over 100 times more, nearly 110 times more Soviets died than the Americans. Okay. And already the Soviets were fighting for 1.5 years against the Nazis before the United States even entered into the war. And yeah, okay, let's see. The United States sent the first soldiers in November of 1942, and like I already said, the Soviet Union started fighting them on June 22nd, 1941. And they started, getting killed or something. And Russia finally paid off the war debt to the United States on August 21st, 2006, and they, I think the United States, they forgave, let's see, 3/4 of that. So that's at least a good thing. But of course, I don't know. I think the Great Britain paid more money back than the Soviets. I think maybe it's because of the devastation of the Soviet Union at that time. And I guess, Putin is the one that actually paid it back in 2006. But a final amount was agreed to in 1972, and the last amount was that it was $772 million that Russia paid back, and was agreed on in 1972. But a lot of probably bartering here and there, and I don't know. Maybe it's a negative part for the Soviet Union. I don't know how much money that was to them. Of course, by the time it was 2006, of course, it was less money. So it took a long time for them to pay it back. Not that it was like a huge amount. It's just that, I don't know, maybe Russia was insisting we did a tremendous, debt for you and you guys don't appreciate it. I don't really know. So, let's see. But remember, the United States went off the gold standard in 1971, and then Russia, then they made this agreement. I guess that's when the United States dollar, the value really dropped. It dropped like a, when they going off the gold standard, and then that's when they converted also, remember, to the petrodollar. So, just a point in history you should also put in for some comparison. Okay. Good, I went through, I think, one part of this. Okay, is the words of Churchill. I have it written, the words of Roosevelt written on this other paper when I get to the news, which is similar to what I'm talking now. But the words of Churchill. Here's what Churchill said. This is a quote. This is a quote from Churchill. So, and Donald Trump loves Winston Churchill. So Donald Trump is in a very bad need of a history lesson. And like I said, it's very insulting to these people to hear them being told that the United States defeated, the Nazis, when, the West did a very small portion of it. And hear the words of Churchill. So here's what Churchill said. I shall take the occasion to repeat tomorrow in the House of Commons what I have said before. That is that the Russian army that tore the guts out of the German military machine and is at the present moment holding by far the larger portion of the enemy on its front. What I also said 85%. So anyway, I guess that's all. Well, he said more, but anyway, that was the major part of what he was actually getting at. So I don't know. It's terrible. Donald Trump, he's criticizing other people when he gets out. I guess he's got the license to come out and insult these people. And I guess it's said that there's every single family in Belarus, every Belarusian family has lost. You can go to any Belarusian today, and they've lost somebody in their family in World War II. It's not anywhere near that case in the United States. My uncle fought in the Battle of the Bulge on the American side, and on the German side, my grandfather was a prisoner of war under the Russians. And I have to admit, I'm not so great with a rifle. I'm good with a handgun. You find out, but I'm not that great with a rifle. I don't know if I ever got expert. I think I got sharpshooter, but I often like a marksman or whatever with a rifle. But my grandfather, I guess, was really good. So they chopped off his trigger finger, and they made him a cook. So during the war, the Russians chopped off his finger just in case he ever got away. I guess he was a really deadly sniper. So anyway, so let's keep going. What else do I have to say? Where did I leave off here? It's a big piece of paper. Talked about the Lend-Lease part already too. But it's not like, at least Churchill gave credit for the Russians for that. And like I said, the British didn't do a heck of a lot, even though they got vastly more money in Lend-Lease. But of course, they did pay a lot more of it back than the Russians did. They paid, I think, into the billions they paid back. And Russia, I don't know exactly how much in total the Russians paid back. I don't know if it was just 772 million. But like I said, the British paid back billions. And the only, I don't know, you can't say that it's a claim of fame of the British, a claim to fame. One thing they did is they deciphered the Enigma code, so that they think, as far as ships are concerned, they actually knew, and they British had great spies, and so they were catching the transmissions of the Germans, and they were able to keep it secret for a long period of time, and they knew exactly where the Germans were and what they were attacking. So that helped tremendously in World War II. But also one thing, and I guess Churchill was really proud of it, Churchill was advocating the well, it's like Eisenhower was the same way. Eisenhower was a great president, but he wanted the genocide of all Germans. And I think, Churchill is on record as saying he wanted all Japanese and Germans to be wiped off the face of the earth. He wanted them all genocided. So, like I said a lot of times, the good people in history are never as good as they say they are, and the bad are never as bad as they say they are. So it's something you should always remember. And part of the bad legacy of Great Britain and the United States is one of them was, of course, Hiroshima, and the United States. Now they're trying to make everybody think that it was the Russians that did Hiroshima. Really, Trump is also helping with this revision of history by, obviously saying that America beat the Nazis. But one of the things that the British and the Americans did together is they bombed Dresden. They killed 25,000 civilians. There was no military present whatsoever, and they did it, technically speaking, you can say they did it for fun. The United States has a record, unfortunately, even though they never put it this way, but they've got a record of very many times. And then as you see it, now they have the internet and ways where you can't hide so much. And it's just like the Israelis and stuff. They kill for fun. They dehumanize people. Like I remember some of this in the military as well. Whoever is your designated enemy, you make it sound like they're either stupid or they're cruel or whatever. We're going to go after Ivan or the Gooks or whatever. And of course that's, and they encourage you to kill them. A lot of time innocent people, to go killing them. And there's even been American soldiers during the Iraq War. And one guy left, and I guess it was a really horrific crime what this guy did. He probably was trying to get sex from some Iraqi woman. Maybe her husband died or whatever, and I think she had 2 kids, I believe. And she turned him down. She was a Muslim woman. And so he left the camp with a jerry can. You know, it's the things, you know, they strap them to Jeeps and all that. You know, sometimes we put water in them. It has to say water or gas on it. And then anyway, but he left the camp with a jerry can full of gasoline. And I guess he went to where this woman lives. I don't know how he subdued her and her kids or something. He doused them with gasoline and burned them alive and things like that. So, and even Russians, I'm not going to make any, even though you'll talk to people here and they will deny this. You know, cruel things happen in war. My mother was gang raped by Russian soldiers many times, she said. Her mother was too old, her sister was too young, so she was the one that got it. And they would hide underneath the house when the Russian soldiers came through and all that. And I talked to the Russians, that's not true, you know. Her girlfriend got it even worse. My mother's girlfriend, apparently what happened to her, she was nailed to a door and raped to death. So, and they do that a lot of time, a lot of militaries. I think Americans have even done that. I know the British at one time did it, just recently in Syria. A really very beautiful, they had pictures of this woman, this young girl, you know, before the British came through. And of course they're acting like they're ISIS, but they're British. They're talking in British English. They're all British. And it's one of the things that you don't really hear that often. It was the British that were, a lot of them were the ISIS people. And, you know, Israelis, some of them, the Israelis normally stayed out of it. They just gave support, medical support. Whenever big ISIS leaders got injured, they would be treated in Israeli hospitals. And so when I said Israel and the United States, I guess I actually meant British as well, because a lot of the British were involved in this. But anyway, this girl, really beautiful Christian girl, let me say that again, a beautiful Christian girl. A lot of Syrian people are Christian. Bashar al-Assad was a Christian as well. And they make him out to be very evil, but he's not. His problem is he was very soft, Bashar al-Assad. He's still alive today, but very terrible injustice what they talk about him. Even good people saying, oh, he's a brutal leader. Ask anybody, well, what did Assad do that's brutal? Nobody can come up with anything brutal. You know, it's like when you don't have any evidence, so why do you continue to say that he's some terrible and brutal leader? Anyhow, all this stuff, and I don't see any evidence, zero, absolutely zero. But anyhow, and I'm not saying it was a bed of roses, but anyway, this girl, it's really terrible. They tied her up on a bed and they all raped her. And I don't know, I think they maybe raped her with different things and killed her that way. So she was raped to death as well. Terrible stuff that goes on in the world, I'm telling you. And I always get to this stuff in my videos, and a lot of people don't talk this way because you're not going to get a lot of subscribers necessarily when you hear this stuff. It's like watching a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie and stuff. Those things make me sick. I don't ever watch them. I've never seen them, and I don't really want to watch them. You know, just bloodbath movies and stuff. So maybe I shouldn't even be telling you guys this stuff. Okay, keep going, dear Dookie boy. What else is going on in the world? So I wanted to actually mention that it's like a lot of this stuff, you know, this revision of history and trying to make everybody think of something else that isn't true, including, unfortunately, Donald Trump doing it as well. My jury is always out on Donald Trump, you know, because he does very good things and he does some terrible things, you know, very much in support of massacring all these Palestinians, you know. And I guess now the number has gone up to, officially it's over 60,000 innocent people, you know, mostly children that the Israelis have massacred, you know. A lot of them do it with big smiles on their face and really love what they're doing, killing people like that. So, okay. Oh, I wrote on here because I I was always, this has nothing to do with this history of World War II at the moment or anything, but there's a guy, and he's also here in Belarus. I think he sees my channel, at least on occasion. I mentioned him yesterday, and he might have seen it. Maybe he's not going to seen it or whatever. And for some reason, I'm subscribed, but they don't really send notifications when he has things put up for me. But anyway, his name, and he shows pretty girls, lots of pretty girls, because I know you guys like that. And you know, I'm too shy. Like I said, somebody wrote something. I put a comment in there why I don't do it so much. Anyway, old guy, married. And anyway, but this guy, his channel is called Allodic Ventures. Allodic Ventures. And yeah, maybe I'll get together with him sometime and, you know, do some stuff, not news or looking at girls or who knows what. He's not a pervert, so he doesn't come up and do any kind of a pervert stuff with women. And there have been, unfortunately, because Belarus has a reputation of having very beautiful women here, and it's a very well-known thought. Even when I was coming over here, there was a guy, he was like 70 years old, very rich guy, by the way, and well, I don't know, he's a millionaire. He was knighted by the Queen of England. It was in the last country I was in, and he wanted to stay in when I told him I was going to Belarus, he wanted to get my credentials. And I know his daughter, also a beautiful girl. As a matter of fact, they're Syrian, and he wanted to have my anyway, contacts or whatever, because he wanted to come over here and look for a Belarusian wife, you know. And you know, a lot of people, it's a reputation, like I say, that there's the women here, they take care of themselves, they don't get fat, they try to make themselves beautiful. It's just, I guess it's part of culture or tradition. And you guys saw my video yesterday when I'm sitting outside, and a lot of, you know, I wasn't trying to look, you know, I wasn't sitting there for beautiful women. And I guess when the summer's going to be a little bit more in full, a lot of people are a little bit overdressed, I think. I was a little underdressed. I was wearing a t-shirt, sitting in the shade. If I would have been in the sun, I would have probably been quite warm. But anyway, but anyway, you saw the girls going by. Okay. Anyway, that is that. Now let's go to some of the other things I said, and it's mostly a lot of the same stuff that I'm just now talking about. Okay. Medvedev, he was also very much insulted by Donald Trump's statement, and he said, you know, like I said, he's quite angry about that. A lot of Russians are very angry about Donald Trump taking, you know, saying the USA gets all the credit for defeating the Nazis. So, and I have this quote somewhere right here too, from Roosevelt, even admitting it. Donald Trump needs a big lesson in history, you know, or maybe he's going to say that that Churchill was lying, even how much he loves Churchill. And okay. Let's see, stuff I already talked about. And I don't know, I have to also admit that you know, we were all, in the United States, were victims of indoctrination, you know, making us think that, well, we're so great and we're the ones that defeated the Nazis. Everything that happens great in the world is because of us. And I guess it's indoctrination Ukrainian style, you know. Like, everything that's great is Ukrainian. I already talked about the Lend-Lease as well. ISIS, I said that. Medvedev's words, he said it was what Donald Trump said is pretentious nonsense. He said Victory Day is ours, and it is May 9th. You know, so Donald Trump is trying to make it change to May 8th, and I'm not even sure what the significance is of making it May 8th or May 9th, and Donald Trump is trying to copy the Russians now with a parade and all that, so it's probably gonna, you know, build force, and he's gonna say, ours is greater, look at these hands, we're the great winners. I don't know, eventually taken over. I don't know if that's gonna happen. They have people, I saw this in Asia and in Venezuela, and a lot of these people are marching, and they're all honoring Russia and the Soviet Union for defeating the Nazis, in many places in the world. And it's very strange. Nobody's honoring the United States so much, but I guess they're not as indoctrinated as us from the United States. And yeah, I already mentioned, it's all fake. What Donald Trump says he defeated ISIS single-handedly. Look at these hands. I did it with these hands. Anyway, oh, I don't know if I mentioned it yet, but Zelensky and a lot of the Russians are kind of, worried about this too. Worried a little bit, but Zelensky is coming with veiled threats that he is going to launch terrorist attacks on Red Square during the May 9th parade. Very veiled threats. Everybody sees it very clearly. And he said that the Russians should be worried. And, very strange because, I don't know, it might be different if he is like bombing the military, marching on there. But Zelensky has made it obvious that they are launching lots and lots of terrorist attacks all over against innocent Russian peoples. They launched some, I guess it was yesterday night, and I don't know if I mentioned it all together, but it looks like there was a lot of these underwater drones, and they were attacking, I think it was a military base there at Novorossiya, or whatever how they call it. It's the port mostly for Krasnodar. And of course they launched, I don't know how many drones. I think it was 137. I made a mistake once and I said something like Ukraine is launching, I think I said 300 drones a day, but it's normally like maybe around 120, 130 drone attacks every night and day, every 24 hours against the Russian peoples, bombing apartment buildings. And they show this stuff here all the time. And of course, Trump doesn't notice that. So when Russia did that one attack on a military ceremony, Donald Trump, of course, was chastising the Russians, but he doesn't say anything when Zelensky every single day is launching drone attacks against the civilians. And a lot of times, they're killing people, 3 here, 2 there. I think the last one, it was an apartment building, and I'm not even sure what town that was. And I think they just injured some children, and I don't know how badly, and maybe an adult or 2. I don't think they killed anybody at that time. So what else did I say here? Medvedev, blah, blah, blah. So, he said another thing. I think he said it another time. You can't, and he's basically, warning that he's going to attack. And he said, this guy walked back again. He probably wanted to see what I'm doing. He heard somebody talking here. He said, blah, 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 Ukraine cannot take responsibility for what is happening in Russia. Ensuring your safety on May 9th. And it's like, basically saying, well, we have to do this. We have to, and it's not necessarily that it's going to be coming from Ukraine, but, they entice a lot of people to attack Russia. People maybe that don't like the government for who knows what all reasons. There's always some in every country. And the United States does this too. The FBI does it. And they get people to maybe at least appear that they're going to launch an attack, and then they swoop in and they arrest them to make themselves look like big shots. I already talked about that in that one when they were using Haitians to attack the Sears Tower and they were the ones that guided them. They're the ones that were giving them the explosives and everything. And, it's very similar probably to the underwear bomber and the shoe bomber. If you guys remember that stuff after 9/11, trying to get people to make so that they can arrest them. Just to say, see, look, we're doing our job and we're catching terrorists. To make everybody get scared and stuff so you can continue, getting body scans and all that kind of stuff, getting onto airplanes, taking your shoes off and all that kind of stuff, Yeah, okay. Okay. Some of the stuff I've talked about. Like I said, it's mostly the same stuff, so I'm going to try to read through this stuff. Yeah, and there's a expression that they were saying already before. It's not from me; it's from somebody else. You know, like making people think that the Russians are the new Jews, and they're trying to get the entire population of Europe to, you know, conditioned. You can say grooming them to hate Russians, so that you'll all join the military in the future war. And I guess it's what they're hoping for. They're hoping to be able. But I think maybe they're jumping the gun a little bit too fast. They want to provoke Russia and try to start a war, and they think they're going to be ready. They're trying to build up their military, putting more and more money into it, and expanding their weapon production, because they want a war against Russia to start. Some people are saying in 2029, and some are saying around 2030 is when Russia wants to go to, or when Europe wants to go to war against Russia. And I don't know. It makes you wonder how much Trump is playing into this. And Zelensky is very happy that he's won over Trump. He maybe had won over Trump all along. So Trump is sending lots of, you know, weapons and money now. It's kind of slowing, you know, at the very beginning, 100 and what was it, 130, you know, 310 million to maintain F-16s. And Zelensky put out that he's getting more F-16s. He said basically on the same day. So it kind of makes you wonder, well, where is he going to, you know, obviously he's going to, United States. Donald Trump has promised to give him probably F-16s. And Donald Trump thinks he's going to be making trillions of dollars from the mineral deal. So there's like some secret rumblings and hints to Donald Trump, you know, don't be jumping the gun. Don't think that, you know, this is going to be true. A lot of people are saying that even if there is so much money, it's going to take over a decade before you're going to get any money is going to be taken out of this mineral deal. So very strange. Now I got to go faster. It's starting to rain a little again, and this ink is going to be running. Okay. But Trump does not yet identify. I mean, you cannot identify him as a Nazi yet. You know, like a lot of the leaders from Western Europe. And Viktor Orban is coming out, and he's really, really cautioning about this what do you call it? A plunge into Nazism by all of his fellow, you know, EU leaders and all. And I got some other stuff too about Vucic and Fico. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm sure I wrote it down. Yeah, but anyway, it looks like you know Donald Trump talking about how much of a great salesman, in other words, a con artist that Zelensky is, and now he's succumbed to Zelensky as well. So that's why Zelensky is very happy, because he said that he came out and he said that he finally won over Trump. So that he said Trump is now seeing things my way. So anyway, after they met in the Vatican, I mentioned it already. Okay. And they're having I guess they call it VE Day in the West in London, and part of the people that are invited that also going to be there and taking place in the one in London are Nazis. You know, they're Nazis from Ukraine, so they're invited, and Russia doesn't like that either. They're having Nazis marching or in the celebration of VE Day. And there's some that are definitely Nazis. They're going to be going there. Maybe they're celebrating their victory of winning Europe. So after all that Russia did to liberate them from the Nazis, so now that's going to be pointed against them. Peskov said it's blasphemous to have Nazis there. Okay, here are the words of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and I quote, "Russian forces destroyed and are destroying more armed power of our enemies, troops, planes, tanks, guns, than all of the other United Nations put together." So in other words, Franklin Delano Roosevelt said that Russia did more to defeat the Nazis than all of the other countries combined. So Donald Trump, did you hear that? Okay, some news of the Republican Party. Did I talk about the thing about... let me say this thing about Zelensky anyway. Or actually, I already did. That's all about all that I have to say about that is he's really happy now that he is got Trump wrapped around his little finger. So let's hear something about the Republican Party now. Rand Paul has come out, and he's believing that Fauci, he's probably, it's more hopeful thinking that Fauci will be held accountable for his role in this COVID stuff. And of course, a lot of people are quoting, and they're laying right at the feet of Fauci. I think you might put a little bit of Mr. Gates, Billy Gates, as part of this too, of over I don't know if they say this is what was it? I don't know. Did they say two? I don't know if they said 200 million or whatever. But anyway, the creation of this virus, you're not allowed to say that what the research has come out with yet on YouTube, or else I'll get deleted. So I cannot say what evidence they have of where the virus comes from, but you guys already know. So okay, and Tulsi Gabbard has also been talking about it, but she is certain to a certain extent, because it's but it's still questionable, because Joe Biden gave Fauci a blanket pardon for all of any crimes that he may have committed for many, many, many years. He could have been raping little girls and stuff, and he's been pardoned for all of that stuff. But Tulsi Gabbard is wondering if they can, because it's a fact that Fauci lied under oath many times. So she's thinking that maybe they can get him for lying under oath, to Congress and all this. Let's see. So let's see, what did I say about Hillary Clinton? Oh. Well, Hillary Clinton, she also lied under oath. Quite a few people. I guess it depends on who you are. You can lie under oath if you're part of the establishment. Makes you wonder who controls the courts. Well, George Soros says, no, let's not talk about that. Okay. Also, I wanted to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's incredible. She is, she's questioning about what's going on today. What's going on? And she is, I think I wrote it down lower. If not, I'll try to say it as well as she did it pretty soon here. She's asking why, this is it. Why is the U.S. help? She said it. She didn't mention the names, but you guys know who it is. Why is the U.S. helping? I wrote it, the truth down, but they're bombing a foreign country on behalf of another foreign country. What she's talking about is the United States is bombing Yemen on behalf of Israel. Now the Houthis said they're going to start blocking American oil ships in the Red Sea. They just came out with that recently. So, but anyway, they were trying to choke off a lot of things going to Israel, and they did a pretty good job, but still things got through, even overland and maybe even some ships. And it was probably in response to what Israel has, this huge blockade of Gaza, making sure that nothing gets in, not even toilet paper, no water, no food, no medications, people starving, dying from malnutrition and all sorts of things. A lot of people dying from this sort of stuff. So they have this huge siege on Gaza, trying to exterminate the people. And I wrote down here somewhere too, maybe I'll get to that, but it's another part of that mobilization of Israeli soldiers. But anyway, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she had a rant sort of thing on Twitter, I guess, and it was a lot of stuff that she wrote. She's talking about COVID things as well, and all the hoaxes and the lies and the stuff. And she's actually, it's incredible. She's heroically coming out with a lot of the truth. So I don't know how many. I think she had 4 tweets. I think did she talk about Fauci, I think, as well? Yeah. So anyway, she's becoming a real truth rock star. So maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene, she might be a little bit upset about like Donald Trump making his promises and believing that he's going to right a lot of the wrongs, when it turns out he might be deeply in bed. He might be a fantastic con artist as well, for the establishment. A lot of people have actually said that. Operation Warp Speed, get vaccinated. It's great. I got vaccinated. It makes you wonder if he did. But I tell you what, a lot of elites, this is a very well-known fact. I knew this and I've witnessed it myself. And a lot of people were pissed off in Germany that political elites and certain people, they get different vaccines than the other ones. So it makes me wonder, did Donald Trump get a vaccine? Did he get a placebo? Or what? Anyway, it makes you wonder because Colin Powell, he probably maybe went to the wrong place because he got vaccinated and 2 weeks later he died. And there's other people. Remember all these athletes? I think it was Russell Brand. You know, they're trying him in court, I guess, right now about something that happened 20 years ago. Some woman's coming out and saying that he touched her inappropriately or said something or whatever 20 years ago. And Russell Brand said those things are not true. He said he was a womanizer and things like that. I believe Russell Brand, and that these other things are exaggerated. And of course, there's a lot of gold diggers, things like that. But anyway, what was I getting at? COVID. Anyway, a lot of lies going around here, and so no, Russell Brand was saying something. That's what I was going to get at. Anyway, Russell Brand, fascinating guy, and of course, he was, I guess, demonetized by YouTube. I don't know if he's still on YouTube and just keeps going anyway, even though, you know, he gets literally millions of views. So, and okay, blowing up. I was mentioning on one video, a lot of places blowing up. You have these fires and factories and all kinds of stuff blowing up. Quite a few in Iran, now another one in Iran, one in the Republic of Georgia. There's France, and you have all these big fumes of black smoke from all these places, and you know, and then finally they also mentioned these massive forest fires, and I guess a lot of them are brush and forest fires in eastern Russia as well. You know, not just Israel or whatever. So anyway, there's a big explosion and all that in Iran, and first they said it was a power plant, but it turns out it was a cardboard factory, and a lot of fire. So anyway, also what I was going to say about Israel, and not only are they starving and trying, they're weakening up Gaza as much as they possibly can. So they're starting up now, recalling reserves, and I thought they did this already, but they're calling up tens of thousands of Israeli reserves for more fighting, and primarily Gaza. You know, it makes you think, well, they bombed the place to smithereens, and of course they're not successful in getting rid of Hamas, because the more they bomb, the more of Hamas they create. In reality, a lot of people, what was it that Gerald Celente used to say? He used to say, if you've taken, what does it say? If people lose everything and they've got nothing left to lose, they lose it. You know, in other words, they lose their control. And a lot of these people, you know, Israel, it's like they're out. And I think there's a lot of people that theorize that this is absolutely true. They want to create more and more people to hate Israel. So that's why they're bombing and they're killing the families, killing children, lots of people. And you would think, I mean, how do the Palestinians hold out? I mean, you would be in a rage if somebody kills your child, your only child. And a lot of these men are just broken up. I tell you, when you see these people, men and these women, and just crying, their only child is dead, killed by the Israelis. And obviously, it's very, very, very possible that they want these people, because Israel knows that they're far, far more powerful than these Palestinians are. So they want them to rise up. And I don't know if he is so concerned about how many Israelis get killed. Most of the time, very, very few do. But I guess the whole thing is to get these people riled up and then kill them. Kill them as they get riled up and say, see, it's just self-defense. So a lot of people have said that's the whole aim of Benjamin Netanyahu, Satan-Yahu. I tell you, in my opinion, there is probably no more evil person on the face of the earth that has done more evil than Benjamin Netanyahu. A real disgrace to humanity. There's no doubt about that. You know, and then they're going after people, beating them up that are protesting about what's going on, and you know, and all these entities helping Israel, giving them, you know, not just verbal cover, giving them weapons. Of course, Donald Trump and of course the United States, they cannot send enough weapons and enough of the worst bombs. They're sending chemical weapons. You know, as you see, there's a lot of what do they call that? White phosphorus, banned weapons, and they're using them on innocent people in Palestine to cause, you know, very painful deaths of children and things. I tell you what, is it very sickening, you know? Very, very sickening. And the United States is very much apparently in favor of that. Donald Trump, apparently he has nothing against that, you know? It makes you really wonder. You see a good side of Donald Trump and a bad side. So, and then, you know, there's, I tell you what, I've even said this, you know, about Adolf Hitler. There was some good sides of Adolf Hitler, but everybody erased all of that, and we're only seeing the bad sides. You know, maybe his good side is, maybe it's not as good as some of the things that Donald Trump did that were good. But I tell you what, it makes you question our own judgment. Sad to say that. Okay. So, along with the siege, but anyway, these reservists are told that they could also be sent to the West Bank, not just to Gaza, but to the West Bank, to Lebanon, or to Syria, any of the major fronts. And it makes you really wonder, maybe they're not telling them, maybe they're going to try to make a front in Iran. I highly doubt that, you know. I think that they're going to just probably use some of these massive, massive bombs on Iran. Israel has been, Netanyahu, he's been dreaming about somehow destroying Iran at any possible chance he possibly can, but because he loves the Iranian people. That's how it is, you know. Wants to unite them with their maker. Okay, I talked about Zelensky. Oh, that's also something really important. It's very kind of shocking. Vucic, he was in Washington, D.C., I guess, to meet with Donald Trump, and he came down with some sort of a virus or a sickness that put him in the hospital. So he's hospitalized from some kind of a sickness. And, you know, he's one of the people that are supposed to be going to this May 9th celebration. And normally a sickness, it's not like he's faking it. He's certainly not faking it, because if he did, he would have done it, you know, a few days before May 9th. But this is apparently, he would be, it's definitely enough time to recover and to go to the May 9th celebrations of the defeat of the Nazis in Moscow. And because he's scheduled to go there. And of course he was warned with very, very bad consequences if he goes by the European Union. And Ursula von der Leyen and Kaja Kallas, they warned any European leader in particular that is going to go to the May 9th military parade of the defeats of the Nazis with very, very serious consequences if they are going to go. And it's very strange. There's two of them, the two most prominent leaders of the European Union, I think maybe only two, that are going to the May 9th celebrations. And one of them is Robert Fico. You know, there was an assassination attempt against him not that long ago. That he almost died. I think it was 8 bullets that the guy put into him. And he also came down with this sickness, the same sickness apparently that Vucic came down with. Now, isn't that a coincidence? They weren't anywhere near each other, but yet he came down with the same sickness. I'm not too sure if Fico is also bedridden in a hospital, had to be hospitalized. But the two leaders, the very two European leaders, after the big strong warning from the European leaders, I mean of the entire European Union, of not to go to honor the defeat of the Nazis, they're threatened by the European Union, and exactly those two leaders are the ones that come down with a sickness. None of the other ones. And it's really strange. I was mentioning that, I think, in another video. It's really weird that, you know, when you have these people that actually fight, that stand up for the people, they're always the ones that get sick. They're always the ones that have assassination attempts against them. Isn't that strange? Very, very strange. The ones that stand up for the people are the ones that are getting attacked by the normal people. And if you believe that, I have a forest to sell you. Jeez. Boy, what a coincidence. Isn't that something hard to believe? Anyway, you guys know what I'm getting at on that one there. The AFD, let's talk about that. Well, oh no, Musk. Oh gosh. Musk, he said that in 1955, this, you know, talk about again, this is kind of a little bit related. 1955, there was 161 Americans. The population of America was 161 million people. And they had 560,000 people in mental asylums. But now, there are far more Americans, at least double. Whatever, there's 332 million Americans, but yet there's only 35,000 in mental asylums. So it makes you really wonder, I guess, is America's mentally they're getting more healthy, you know. So I don't know who's doing all these assassination attempts and doing all this other crazy stuff, but anyway, I'll tell you what, and the real truth is there's a lot more crazy people out running around in America now, I guess, than there was in the old days. So anyway, or maybe they said, oh, you're not crazy, go ahead. Okay, it's come out now that the main reason for calling the AFD extremists, I guess this was put out, is that not only that can they put them under surveillance and break them up and all that kind of stuff, because it's like next to terrorism, they're saying, it is now that they can deprive the AFD of public funding so that they cannot participate in elections anymore. I guess that's called democracy, right? The most popular party in Germany that just does not happen to be in agreement, with what the establishment says are the ones that are now not going to be able to have that. Let's see, very small, I wrote something here. No, it was just from Marjorie Taylor Greene, what she said. Well, she was actually mentioning that, let's see, why is the United States bombing Yemen for Israel when Israel has a very extremely powerful military? She didn't add that that the very powerful, all the big bombs and the stuff, they've even got nuclear weapons, she said. But yet, why is the United States bombing Yemen for Israel? Very strange. And she said, now we're threatening a war, and she said it's closer than you think, that we want to make a war against Iran. Donald Trump, the peace president, I don't think he's going to actually start a war that way. So it really makes you wonder, if they're going to do it, they're going to make sure that they provoke Iran to a point to where it looks like Iran started, or they're going to do a false flag. And say, we have to go against them. We have to fight them over there so we don't have to fight them over here. That sort of a deal. Like Israel, they started these massive bombings yesterday of Syria, which under Bashar Assad or even under this new radical guy, they have never acted. He even said he wants to be good friends with Israel, this new radical leader. But Benjamin Netanyahu said he had to bomb Syria to protect Israel. It's like, how Israel's view of self-defense is, keep bombing the crap out of some place, until they have to respond against you. It's just incredible. Anyway, I got to kind of get out of here too. The rain is getting a little bit too heavy, and I put out a lot of information here already. Anyway, hope you guys appreciate it. And I'm hoping that in this area that it's going to upload a lot faster than by where I'm at, because I can't really like to see my phone sitting there for 12 hours uploading a video from YouTube. And I don't know who to blame even. I don't know if it's YouTube, maybe it's this country. I don't even see why that is. Like a 15-minute metro ride away, it takes the entire day to upload a video compared to 20 minutes in another place. So anyway, I don't know if my phone is waterproof. So I'll end this video. Thanks you for joining me, and yeah, be free to make some comments. Let me know if you like it or not, and push the like button. Geez, people, push the like button. You're not doing that. Okay, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.